pre-recorded. Just going to put it out. There's a lot of folks that couldn't make it today. So the recording is going to get posted to a YouTube, my YouTube account for my class. I'll make a link of that available, push it out to all parents the same way I invited you to this meeting. You can see that in case you missed something here. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen now and start this presentation. So again, thanks for all your patience for that start here. But I'm officially updated to the latest Zoom software, and here we go. All right, so obviously the trip is just a little over a week away. We're leaving on Friday next week, and what I'm going to do is kind of run through the itinerary from the perspective of the participant. So hopefully you can see my screen. Can I get a thumbs up that my screen is visible to everybody? Can anyone shoot in the chat a thumbs up that you can see my screen?
Yeah, we can see it.
We're back in action. Can you see that slide deck, everybody? All right, thanks, Ms. Vanderberg. All right, cool. All right, so our first, before I kind of get into the itinerary, just some information and some thinking about prior to the 12th, prior to next week. Packing, right? That's kind of where everyone starts when you start for a trip. Just some reminders and suggestions on that. And students are getting a document. We're having a class meeting on Monday. I'm going to give them all a document, both digitally and hard copy, with all this information on this screen, plus some other stuff. But they're allowed to bring 2 bags. So 1 bag for under the bus, that's not accessible at all during the trip. And then 1 that they can have on the bus. Please pack enough clothing for 2 days like you would in a trip. Some special attention to clothing. Please bring 1 set of older clothing for paintball. So one of our first stops, our first stop really is to Swings and Things, a paintball place. There's other activities, including batting cages, mini golf as well. And I think there's an arcade that they can access too. But paintball is the main attraction, and it does get messy. And obviously the bus company doesn't want, students covered in paint to re-enter the bus. So they should have some older clothes that they can easily put on, take off. We have garbage bags. We'll put their old clothes in garbage bags, write their names on them, and they can put those back in their suitcases before we take off for Cleveland. So please bring that. I would also recommend bringing rain gear. Rain or shine, things can come up. Cedar Point is right on Lake Erie, and storm systems can kind of pop up like they do here. I plan on bringing that. Warm clothes also for that same reason. Temperatures can drop pretty quick right there by Lake Erie, and also the baseball game is a night game. It can get cool. Cleveland's climate's a lot like ours, and I would just bring a sweatshirt for them to stay warm at during. They'll get a reminder when we get to the hotel to change into that too. Please have your sons bring their gold card. So the gold card does 2 things. One, identifies them. It's a maybe their only form of ID. And it connects us to McQuaid too. So having their gold card with them at Cedar Point at the baseball game is just a smart move. So please have them bring their gold card. Things like sunscreen, a water bottle. The backpack is allowed at Cedar Point. There's lockers they can store things in too if they prefer to do that. And money. So they should have enough money for 2 meals. And I'll get to that. I think I got to that in my email I sent out yesterday. But they need to buy food at Progressive Field, the baseball game, and then again on the way home. We asked that you pack a lunch for them on the way to Cleveland, so that meal is covered. And then they're asked if they want to bring snacks on the bus. We just ask that they're single kind of serving snacks, not huge, giant bags of chips they're going to break open and spill everywhere. I think you can kind of apply the rules you would in your own cars on a road trip. You want your car to be not covered in sticky, gooey substances at the end of the trip. And also be mindful of allergies. There are a couple of students that have allergies. We're pretty lucky this trip. There's not too many, but please avoid, nuts. Please avoid, excuse me, things with lots of ingredients. And we're not assembling, ice cream sundaes on the bus at any point. I don't bring expensive items. Things are to not pack here. I would not bring, you are not allowed to bring Bluetooth speakers. They're going to be told that. Video game systems are discouraged. Big ones, I mean, the handheld ones, I think makes lots of sense, but please don't pack a PlayStation 5 in your backpack. And excessive cash, jewelry, valuable things. Not advisable to bring that. Obviously drugs, alcohol, contraband, we call that, is not allowed. The way we frame this with the boys is that McQuaid's conduct code follows them on these trips and applies. And obviously that's covered in our conduct code to have, illegal substances of that nature. Excuse me. We have the right to search their bags at any time during the trip. And that's made very clear to them. That will be made very clear again at our meeting on Monday, is that, there's nothing in their bags that they shouldn't have, and we'll check that. Any questions about packing? Medications and things from the nurse's office are given to me prior to the trip. I will have first aid kits. All the groups will have first aid kits throughout the trip. And if a student in a group has a medication that needs to be given out, or an EpiPen or something of that nature, that group's chaperone will have that student's medicine or EpiPen, and that student will know and be able to contact that teacher if they need it. I see a question about paintball clothes. Yes, so paintball clothes should go on the bus. Correct, Mr. Nicholson. That's a great clarification. They will be able to put their dirty clothes in their suitcase at the end, so they don't the dirty clothes with paint on them never make it into the cockpit of the bus or the cabin. But correct, if you could pack that like sweatshirt, old sweats, what have you in their bus bag, that would make things flow. Thank you for clarifying that, and I'll make sure I say that to them on Monday as well. Yeah. Okay, so the rest of the next slide here is just a little bit about the chaperones. So again, I'm kind of the lead person on this. Paul Guadagna, Chris Hood, Wallace Foster Smith, and Christopher Gase and Aaron Schnittman are the other chaperones. If you need to contact any of us, I have Dr. Parks's number here. He's the main guy who contacts me. I'm giving you my cell phone number here. The boys are going to get something called a Google Voice phone number. I'm letting you guys cut through right to me if you need me in an emergency only, please. So that's that number there. I will push it out in an email too, but I'd rather you not give it to your sons. Your sons are going to be able to call me with this the way the Google Voice, if you don't know it, it's sort of like a dummy number. They'll call this number that gets rerouted to my cell phone number. So if they need me during the trip, their chaperones are all going to have their phone numbers as well. And that becomes useful if someone's not back to the rendezvous point at Cedar Point at the designated time, but they're not going to really say much else to them other than you need to be at the fountain in 10 minutes or some other reminder. Any other questions about the chaperones or contacts? All right, let me just scan for hands here. Great. Okay, let's go on to kind of the itinerary here. So the first slide I've got is departure. So we're leaving at 7 a.m. On the dot. Please arrive at 6:30, no later than 6:45. That's where we're going to board the bus. Students will make their way into the auditorium. The buses will pull right up in that auditorium. We call that the middle school lot. That's where I think where most middle school parents drop off their sons. Again, just another reminder, we need you to bring a lunch for your son that day. Okay, so we're having 2 buses, 56 passengers. They've got Wi-Fi charging stations. We're gonna play a movie. They watch the movies less and less. I've noticed there's much more phones and Nintendo Switches and things like that. But we still will put on a movie. It's a McQuaid tradition is to put on the latest action movie or whatever. But anyway, just the important thing here, the thing I'll highlight, 7 a.m. we are leaving. We're gonna phrase this to the boys is that you don't get a refund. This is a non-negotiable. To make our kind of hit our times and all that, we have to leave at 7 in the morning. Any questions about our departure here at McQuaid? Okay, so once again, that's door number 2. That's the auditorium circle or drop off location. All right, our first stop is at Swings and Things. So this is just outside Cleveland. It is would be east of Cleveland by about 20 minutes. It is kind of a already prepaid activity they can add on and add more things if they want. But for what we paid for, you can see it there. It's paintball, batting cages, and mini golf. They're going to change post paintball. It's really great. The staff there is fantastic. They are great at keeping the boys engaged. Safety is done really, really, really well there. All the guns are set are at a really low speed, lower than I think like a real enthusiast would have for safety. And the boys can't change that at all. They demonstrate that. There's a whole course they have to go through before they can even play a game. I've been really impressed with their staff every time I've been there. I think I've been there 3 times now. I've done this Cleveland trip. This will be my 4th time. We've gone to them every time. They're excellent. Eyewear is covered, chest protectors. The boys are pretty much all covered. I would definitely press on them that their old clothes should be long sleeves. So sweatshirts, sweatpants, short sleeve, and we're gonna really press on them. No short sleeve shirts, no shorts. You don't want to take it, even though they're slowed down. These things can leave a welt. So I would remind them that those old clothes should be long sleeves. Any questions about swings and things? So we'll be there. If you have your itineraries out, we'll be there for about 2.5 to 3 hours. Great time. There's all kinds of games. They switched it up. There's all kinds of variations of paintball. The boys always have a blast. They get to shoot their teachers, and we all jump in, and it's a blast. And if they prefer not, that's not their thing. Mini golf is fun. Batting cages are something to do. There's a huge arcade on the inside that they're allowed to go in. Again, that's not covered in the cost, but that they can, purchase tokens and do that. Our second stop is a hotel. So we go right from Swings and Things to Best Western Plus in Strongsville, Ohio. So it's just on the outer ring of Cleveland. There is a pool at the hotel. I'm not talking about it too much to the boys. They're not going to hear about it all on Monday. There's really not time for it. If you see your itineraries here, we're here for about an hour just to unpack, check in, kind of maybe change into some warmer clothes, something like that. This is where I'm going to remind them on the buses. Depending on the weather, I'm going to guess it's going to be a chilly, cool evening, 50s, 60s. Throw on your sweatshirt, get your sweatpants or your jeans out, something like that. I'm going to remind them also to bring their money, but leave electronics, little switches, things like that. Bring your phones, but leave all the other things at home other than, the essentials you need for the game. Any questions about that stop? Any questions about the hotel in general? Okay, you guys are easy. This is going really great once I got it started. All right, so our next stop is Progressive Field. We're going to get there early. The game starts at 7. We'll be there at 6. We're in section 309, which is the family decks. I don't know if you can see my cursor or not. Probably not. We're in the right field seats, kind of right in there. We sat there last time I went. It's great. It's designed for families. They don't sell alcohol nearby it. There's not maybe as many enthusiastic fans in that area, we'll call it. And there's a cool, right behind our seats, there's a cool like pitch clock game that can go and see how fast they can throw. Boys were doing that all over the place a couple years ago. And it's just it's really nice. See, the view is pretty good. We're playing the Angels, should be a fun game with the star power in that game. Dinner's at their own expense. I was poking around. I couldn't get specific prices to the most cost things, but $15, $20 should get them a nice, probably unhealthy meal, but fill them up. We're going to leave by 10, and they're expected to be back to their seats. They can roam around freely. They're going to check in with their chaperones occasionally, but they have to be in their seats by the 7th inning. We'll do a head count there and contact them if we don't have them by the 7th inning, by which then they'll stay with us. We may leave at that point. Depending on how long it goes. Baseball games are supposedly going faster than they used to, so it's really important we have everybody by the 7th inning. My plan is to leave before the game is over to avoid kind of some of that crowd nexus leaving. It gets a little chaotic. Back to the buses right outside of a great area for buses that we'll meet up at and check in, do a head count, and we'll get to the hotel. Any questions about the baseball game? And this family area is like a nut-free zone too. So if your son has a nut allergy, it's a little bit safer for him to be there. Yes. Yeah, it could be over before 10. Yep. So 10 is that 10 o'clock time. I checked with I had this thought, but I watched a lot of baseball and I noticed this. I heard that's based on the old rules, right? And she said, well, we still want to keep it to 10. Mr. Chicarella, I think we might be right out there at 9 o'clock, 9:30. That's why I said 7th inning instead of like a time. We want to collect all the boys by that time. It does mean that they need to know about baseball and understand when it's the 7th inning. So maybe some coaching will happen there. we kind of maybe we'll adjust that to give it a time. That's why it's nice having their cell phones. We can tell them you need to be back at your seats in 10 minutes. But point taken there, baseball is definitely going faster. It's a good thing. It means more time at the hotel, I think. All right, so after that, we're going back to the hotel. I wanted to use a different book title here. There's a more explicit book about going to bed. Maybe you guys are familiar of, about just go to sleep, but we're going to get them go right to bed. Lights out at 11. You know, the preaching here is there's really not much to do. Tomorrow is going to be a big day. Save your energy. They're still going to stay up late. They're still going to be boys. But we're checking rooms. There's a exhaustive checklist all my chaperones are going to go through just to make sure that everything's in its place upon checkout. But before bedtime, just know your chaperone is going to enter the room, make sure all 4 boys are supposed to be there that are there. Going to just do a little, you know, quick check to make sure things seem all in order. And we will be taping their doors. So that's a tried and true practice to make sure they're staying in their rooms. There is a security guard hired by a First Choice that is going to be on our hallway the whole night. Just know that chaperones, we're going to be in that mix as well. Just sort of listening for noisy rooms, checking in on them, reminding them of the bedtime, all that. You know, here's where a lot of communication prior to the trip comes into play. They don't know the consequences if they aren't listening, if they're, you know, damaging property and all that. And we're going to be very clear with them about that. I'll show you guys the letter I'm giving them, which hints that at the end of the meeting. There's breakfast in the morning. It's included. And yeah, that is that. Hopefully, you know, they'll get some rest and get ready for the next day. Any questions about their evening at the hotel? This might be their first time in a hotel without mom and dad ever. So we're cognizant of that. You know, some guys are gonna go right to sleep. Some guys, this might be kind of weird and take a little while, but you know, if you want to talk to me after the meeting about that, happy to hear. Okay. The next day, Cedar Point. This is the whole day. This is a pretty easy itinerary here. Again, they're allowed to bring backpacks if it's hot. 3 years ago, I went to Cedar Point. It's -90 degrees and humid, and it was extremely important to bring water. We'll see how that works out this time. One thing we're stressing is the buddy system. If we see a student, one of our students, McQuaid students, alone, we're going to collect him and he's with the chaperones for the rest of the day. They have to remain at least with their group. I did have a couple parents say, like, well, what if my son doesn't like rides and his group does like rides? Had that conversation with the chaperones beforehand. If there's 2 of the 4 boys that want to go do something a little less ride focused, that is okay. They have to be with one person and have their chaperone know that. We have periodic group check-ins already set up at locations. One of them is a food area. The second one is at the end by the exit. We have their cell phones. Just be aware that their chaperones may be checking in with them about that. Again, there's a little note about the fast pass. Feel free to grab it if you want. It may be a good investment, it may not. It kind of depends on weather and how busy it is and all of that. What if everyone in the group doesn't have a fast pass? That's something to think about. That they don't all get up to the front. I think you have to each have one. So between now and then, that's a conversation with the group. I wouldn't recommend maybe bringing that up unless your son knows, you know, that there's 2 boys in his room or 3 boys in his room that a friend is going to join in. Do we know? I know what groups are in. Your son knows what groups are in. They're going to be in their room with their roommates in one other room. We are meeting as a chaperone group tomorrow to kind of hash that out. It's pretty unscientific. It's kind of it's two rooms together in a group. It's pretty much geographic. So if the room next to them assigned by the hotel, that's their room. That's their other group mate. So to answer your question, to Rachel Adams Gertel, yes, that is about the ratio. There may be more than 8 students. There are 2 groups that are going to have 12 because that's just the way the numbers worked out. Again, to Joan. So one does not have a fast pass. I would say that do not buy a fast pass. If you don't have a buddy, you will also have a fast pass. I think the fast passes are new to me this year. And yeah, I'm not advertising it to the students. I just wanted you to know that that's an option that is there. I wouldn't encourage a fast pass if that's not a group decision that everyone in the group decides to do. We leave Cedar Point at 5 p.m. Just to repeat something I sent out a message about yesterday, Cedar Point's cashless. So if your son has cash for additional food, there's a food voucher that covers a ton of vendors there. There's a lot, but there's some vendors that aren't a part of it. They're like kind of premium. They can spend their own money there. They can play games with their cash. They just have to convert that cash to a prepaid card. There's kiosks throughout the park in which they can do that. That's going to be told to them on Monday. I'll repeat it on the bus. But it's cashless, but your son can go into the place with cash. It's like a gold card. Mr. Campisi, gold cards are just to have a photo ID, just to have a photo ID on them, to identify them with McQuaid and to identify them just for general good issue. They can bring a debit card. No, Bridget, Visa is accepted at all the food kiosks, and it would function like the card you could get at the park. So the only issue with the debit card would be your issue if you didn't want that or didn't trust them with it. But it works at all the venues in the park. So the water park isn't open, Miss Adams or Miss Gortel. The water park doesn't open.
Hey, I'm watching Mr. Orr.
Thanks. So there's a ton to do there, but the water park portion you can see there isn't open. So no need for a swimsuit for this trip. If you want to hang out afterwards, I can tell you who their roommates are. They know they signed up for their rooms, and everybody had to come in person and sign up, Miss Stotts. So they know who their roommates are. But if you want me to tell you, hang out after the meeting's over, after we're done, kind of on the last slide, and I can tell you. Okay. So we're departing Cedar Point at 5 p.m. Obviously checking head count, and then we're on the bus. So that we're making one stop on the way back, and that is a meal. There's $5 cash handed to them at that stop. As you know, $5 cash is not going to get them like a dinner. So have a little bit more money, maybe $10 more reserved for that meal there. If they were poor budgeters and have no money left, we'll take care of them. But just please tell them, maybe kind of note what money is for what. They need to have a little bit of money to buy a meal on the way back. We've typically stopped at a place just outside of Erie, which has a lot of fast food options in a small area. That to me works better than rolling up to one McDonald's with 80 students and bombarding them, is to kind of give them some choices. So that last meal on the way home is at their expense. I see some questions here. Is it hard to hear me? Okay, maybe I moved away from the microphone. Thanks for telling me. I appreciate that. Let me go back a couple questions here.
No, he got a mute.
You're asking me how I feel about it.
Michael,
I think some of the concerns the parents are kind of reading between the lines. It does kind of separate the groups a little bit too much. I wouldn't encourage your son to buy a fast pass. I've been at Cedar Point in the years where it would have come in handy, but I think the point of this trip is to be with your classmates and to experience the day with them, and to kind of separate them into those who have fast passes and those who don't. Especially when they need to stay in their nuclear groups, is not good practice. So I would say no to fast passes, but I can't stop students from buying them once they're in the park. I'm hearing, is that any better now? I have no way of making my microphone better. I'm really sorry about that.
Colin, can you hear?
I can hear you.
Okay, it's just that people weren't on mute. That was the only problem. If they're not talking over you, we can hear you fine.
Oh, so some people are not on mute still? Okay. Got it. Yeah, someone asked about the cashless system. Sure, it kind of just works like McQuaid's gold card, right? It's the same kind of system. There's a kiosk that can feed money into the system, and they can load up a card, and they can buy whatever they want, whatever at any, like souvenirs or carnival games, additional food. Someone's got their all good. That said, they do get a voucher for Cedar Point, and it's a generous voucher. I remember having meals there. There's barbecues, all kinds of stuff, and it's enough food for those gentlemen to eat. So they don't need to bring money per se for day 2 at Cedar Point, but I know them, and there's other additional games that cost money, like the Carnival Barker games, that they can add money to these cards with that. Okay. Any more questions about Cedar Point? Okay. All right, I'm just gonna go back one more time in case you folks just came in late. There's my cell phone again. It's on down at the bottom. It's 944-6407 585, obviously. And feel free to call me. Like I said at the top of the meeting, I'm not giving that out to your sons. They'll have like a dummy number. Let me just show you the document that they are going to see. Ms. Gage, one check-in at midday and then one at the end. It is up to the chaperones a little bit if they feel like they want to check in, or maybe if a group wants to check in more. It's not a huge park, especially with the water park being sort of closed. But we check in once at lunchtime or around lunchtime. Count up your 8 guys, count up your 12 guys. Good to go. We'll see you back at 5. And that is generally enough. Beyond that, I've found that a lot of the boys traveling from one end of the park to the other, they lose a lot of time with more check-ins than that. It kind of takes away from some of the precious time there, because if you're waiting in line for an hour, which does happen occasionally, I've been in lines there for long, more check-ins than that can really eat into the time. Thank you. Good call.
About
Okay.
your trip. Thanks, buddy.
Oh, not a problem. Here is the document. Let me open that up. The document that they're going to see. This is it. So Mr. Rosedale did this trip for a long time before me. I know you guys probably all know Mr. Rosedale, remember him from his teaching. Let me find. So this, I took his letter and I changed it a little bit, but it still has the classic sort of Rosedale tone to it, and the classic Rosedale sort of humor. I left all that in there. I didn't feel like changing it. But so here's what they're going to see. It's called Rules and Suggestions. So let me just share that with you, and then I'll end the meeting after that, unless you want to stick around. Okay, I am rusty with Zoom. It was an ace at one point. Okay. So here's the document. It's just lots of bold letters, lots of highlighting. He mentioned sleeping bags in here. I didn't say anything about that. I think some guys are comfortable with that. If they do want to bring a sleeping bag, that's okay. It's going to stay down below for them. So here's what they're getting: long sleeves, just all the same reminders I told you, just kind of a little bit longer. They're going to walk home with this. I'm also going to push it out to them digitally too. There is a reminder at the bottom about the timing. I say 11 p.m. is when we're back. That is an estimate. Traffic. Pray to God that the bus doesn't have issues, because it does sometimes. These buses, it's a nice bus, but things happen. Your boys will update you. Please just check in with them so you're not sitting in the parking lot too long or getting there too early or late. But we hope it's 11 p.m. But things happen, and that's what we're gonna tell the boys on Monday. Okay, so anything you see on here that I didn't mention? It's a long list. I'll push this out to you too, if that's okay. It's just got a lot of what I said here. You'll have the recorded Zoom message, this Zoom meeting. You'll also have me, if you ever want to text me or call me if you have a question at any point. Totally happy to do that. I want you guys to have no worries. I want them to enjoy themselves, and they'll enjoy themselves better if you're at home with peace of mind on their trip. Okay. So again, if I'm done with all I needed to tell you, I think. If you want to stick around with Zoom is saying I only have 10 minutes left until I upgrade. Well, I'm not upgrading, so you have 10 minutes to stick around and ask a question. Thanks a lot for coming. I really appreciate everyone's support of their sons on this trip. This whole school year has been great. You guys are great. All the dances and activity nights, and just fantastic, I gotta say. I appreciate you, and yeah, if you have a question, shoot me a text. Take care. Yep, thank you. You're welcome. Take care, everybody. My pleasure.